Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be revisiting the idea of a dawning of a new era. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. So to start with, we're looking at the price of Bitcoin versus time, where the price is on a logarithmic scale. And what we're showing here is we're just showing the average price of Bitcoin each year. So it's the average price over 365 days, more or less, right? Of course, it could be 366 days, depending on if it was a leap year. So all these different data points, the average price of each year sort of cuts through all the noise. We can also look at things like the standard deviation from that, the minimum and the maximum price. And what we notice when we look at these sorts of metrics are that we have various phases of expansion and various phases of contraction. Okay, so the general idea is that the price of Bitcoin is generally trending up. But there are some phases of contraction where it does go back down after a while. And the reason is because whenever it goes into price discovery mode, it tends to overshoot whatever you might consider its fair value at the time. And then it sort of comes back down to the fair value and then goes on another crazy expansion phase. So right now, we're in the middle of our fourth expansion phase. We've definitely had three contraction phases over the last several years. So what I would say, if you look at this chart, you can see that our first expansion phase lasted more or less a year, followed by a year contraction, then another year of expansion, a couple years of contraction, a couple years of expansion, a couple years of contraction. What I'm thinking is maybe this one's going to be 3 years or so of expansion at the very least when we look back at this in the future and discuss the idea of the average price going up. Now, of course, we don't know exactly what this will look like at the end of the year because we only just started 2021. This could look a lot different by the end of the year. It's possible that our minimum price by the end of the year is not $28,000 or $29,000, which is what it currently is. It's possible that by the end of the year, the minimum price could be lower than that, and it's also possible the maximum price could be higher than $58,000. So right now, this is what we have for 2021, but we've barely started 2021. We have no idea how high this will go or how low it will go in 2021 for the minimum, the maximum, and the average. We know that at the very least, the maximum will not go below this data point. We already know that, okay? We know it won't go below this data point, and we know that the minimum won't go above this data point since we at least had a phase with a $29,000 Bitcoin at the very beginning of this year. Now, I'm sort of thinking that this expansion phase will look something like this, where it still continues to trend up over at least a couple more years or so. But there could be phases where we cool off for a while, right? It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have, say, like a 2-year bear market / accumulation phase, but we could have periods, months here and there where we're just trending sideways or consolidating at various price points. This is expected. We've had this in the past. We had it in the last bull market. Even though 2017 seems like it was nothing but going up, if you go back and look at it, there were periods of 2 months or more where the price was just kind of trending sideways or down somewhat. So we would expect this in this cycle too. Then eventually, if this does happen, then I would expect a slight pullback. Now I'm sort of extending out the average price. So I'm sort of speculating that maybe the average price by say 2023 could be around $100,000 Bitcoin. The maximum price could go well above that. It doesn't, I mean, the maximum price could go well above the average price. We've seen the maximum price over here go up to $20,000, while the average price in 2017 was only a few $1,000s. So the maximum price can go much higher, but we have to consider what the average price is, because we will have phases where we're trading well below whatever the maximum is, and then we'll have phases where we are trading well below well above what the minimum is. So this is just something to keep in mind. I sort of see the expansion phase looking something like this. Generally, how I see the cycle is institutional investors coming in, retail FOMOing on the idea, getting too far extended, pulling back, and then we just keep repeating the cycle for a while. Now, it's possible the cycle is longer than this. It's possible the cycle is shorter than this. But if we're looking at, say, prior regions of expansion and contraction, it does appear that they are getting slightly longer as we continue through time. Of course, this cycle so far has accelerated relatively quickly. So in the event that we go up to, say, well over 100K this year, and then we start to have a sizable correction, then it could in fact be a shorter cycle if that were to play out. We'll have to take it one step at a time and see what happens. Now you might say, well, why do you think it's only going to go up this much? You can see these other phases went up. These other phases or these other market cycles went up a lot more, but you can see it does sort of trail off. The expansion phase is taking longer here, and it also isn't going up as much, right? This expansion phase took more or less a year, and it went up a significant amount if you just look at the average price. This one over here took a couple years. The one we're currently in, we're already theoretically up a couple years. This one over here, from the bottom before it sort of leveled off by 2018, before coming back into sort of a consolidation phase. So these are taking longer. You can see this one's pretty quick, then this one's a little bit longer, this one's a little bit longer. I expect this one to be a little bit longer as well. And you might say, well, show me the math. I'm happy to do that. Let's look at the maximum price minus the minimum price divided by the minimum. So we're looking at the percent difference between the maximum and minimum price. You can see we're more or less in a downtrend. So the percent difference in any given year between, say, the maximum price and the minimum price is reducing. The percent difference is reducing over time. You can see that right now, by the year 2038 or so, the maximum we might see, or the maximum percent difference we might see between the minimum and maximum price by that year could be a modest 100%. It doesn't mean we can't have 100% in coming years, but what I'm saying is even if we were to have 100% differences in coming years, we'll probably have some years where it looks something like this, where it comes back up to at least the middle of the channel, maybe the top of the channel, and we continue down this decade-long downtrend in terms of the percent difference between the minimum and maximum price. If you were to look at 10%, in order to see only a 10% difference between the minimum and maximum price of Bitcoin, we're looking at, potentially for it to be sustainable, we're looking at potentially not until, several more decades. So what I would say for Bitcoin is that it does stand the test of time, right? It stands the test of time. There will be phases where it'll shake people out. It'll make people fearful. However, the expansion phases continue. The contraction phases continue. The contraction phases tend to never go back to the prior contraction phase. We basically, the price of Bitcoin is essentially taking 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, and then 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We're currently in the 2 steps forward phase, and hopefully this phase will last quite a while as we continue to onboard more and more people into the space, more institutions, as it's more widely accepted throughout the world. Hopefully this video has been informative. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 150,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. And remember, we have the premium list sale. You can find a link to that in the description below as well. You get access to weekly reports, weekly videos, the Telegram alerts channel, the risk dashboard, and more. So make sure you guys check that out. That'll wrap it up for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Bye.